Hello and welcome back to this Library of Ruina series. In this video, we'll be taking on Jae Heon. This fight is pretty tight and it'll often feel like you're losing really hard, then you'll randomly just win. Since this is the last fight before the reset, use the rest of your A tier pages. I have Xiao, Purple Tier, Philip, Harold, and Mirane. Having blunt and druid characters is important, so it probably wasn't the smartest idea for me to use Yan on tip vests for, but we carry on. For decks, my Xiao had a 4 light regen deck with Extract Fuel for the block on 2, so 1, and Raging Storm Love. My Purple Tier has the standard guard stance build. Philip has the same deck as Xiao but with Rekindled Strike instead of Raging Storm Love. My Herald had basically the same deck as Xiao and Philip but with Augury Kick and Tree Dragon formation instead of Cho 1 in their exclusive pages, and my Mirane's deck was identical to Harold's. For passives, my Xiao had the Unstable Crying Children passives in Double Hauler. Purple Tier had Triple R-Suit, Fervor, Charge Shield, and Energy Discharge. Philip had Fervor, Hugging Fire sitting on Brushwood, and 4 Trigrams. Harold had Mind Hauler, Snipe, Fervor, Guardian, and Light of Daybreak. And Mirane had Fervor, Locked Potential, and Double Hauler. For Tier 1 Abno pages, Courage is, of course, the best. Put it on whoever your main carry is, in my case Purple Tier. Your other page should either be Gleaning or Cartier. For Tier 2 pages, a Warm Heart is the most consistent. A Roadwalk Together is also good. I'd personally avoid the other ones. You probably won't get to your Tier 3 page, but Powder of Life is probably the best one. For Eco pages, I'd prioritize Clashing Power over utility, so Logging, Harvest, and the Homing Instinct in that order. Now for the fight itself. You'll be fighting Jae Heon, Weighty Puppet, Nimble Puppet, Regular Puppet, and Puppet Angelica. Jae Heon has 300 HP, 200 stagger, is injured to all damage and stagger damage, and has 5 passives. Shimmering, Nouveau Fabric, the Puppeteer, which gives puppet strings to his puppets over the first 4 scenes. Puppet strings gives an extra speed die to the affected character, and upon death gets revoked in 2 scenes. The affected character will also take 8 damage whenever a stack of puppet strings is lost. Snap Strings makes it so that puppets with puppet strings make Jae Heon use an extra combat page, which I'll talk about later. Finally, Protective Puppetry gives Jae Heon protection and stagger protection equal to the number of puppets that are alive, as well as dead puppets with puppet strings. Before I talk about Jae Heon's deck, I'm going to go over all of the puppets since they're the main enemies. The regular puppet has 70 HP, 50 stagger, is normal to all damage and stagger damage, and has 3 passives: Puppet Skeleton, Manipulated Flesh, and Gig. Its deck consists of Gig, which can be ignored or clashed into by anything, and Creek, which needs a 2 or 3 cost page clashing into it, but it'll cast an extra page on its puppet strings die. This page rolls 4-7, 4-6 blunt. This is a throwaway page and can be clashed into by anything. This puppet will be affected by puppet strings from the first scene. The Nimble puppet has 80 HP, 70 stagger, is normal to all damage and stagger damage, and has 4 passives: Acceleration, Puppet Skeleton, Manipulated Flesh, and Creek, which gives the Nimble puppet 1 haste if it has puppet strings. Its deck consists of Gig, Creek, Mannequin, which can be ignored, and Automated Movement, which should be clashed into by a 3-cost bomb with a defensive on 1, or at least a very powerful one like True Dragon formation. Its puppetry page rolls 3-8, 3-7 evade, 4-7 blunt. Additionally, if the speed value of the die it's being cast on is 5 or higher, all the dice gain 1 power. This page can be clashed into for emotion coins if you need them, but it can also be safely ignored in most circumstances. This puppet will be affected by puppet strings starting on the second scene. The Weighty puppet has 100 HP, 90 stagger, is normal to all damage and stagger damage, and has 4 passives: Concussion, Puppet Skeleton, Manipulated Flesh, and Goo, which gives the Weighty puppet 1 strength if it has puppet strings. Its deck consists of Puppet Blockade, Repressed Flesh, which should be clashed into by an on-2/1 3-cost bombs, and Forceful Gesture, which should be mitigated with a block on 2 from either Augury Kick or Extract Fuel. Its puppetry page rolls 6-10 blunt that inflicts 3 paralysis next scene on hit, and has a 4-7 block counter die. You should mitigate this with a block on 1 or a strong 1 like on True Dragon formation or Rekindled Strike. This puppet will be affected by puppet strings starting on the 3rd scene. Finally, Puppet Angelica has 120 HP, 80 stagger, is injured to all damage and stagger damage, and has 6 passives: Speed, Acceleration, Concussion, Puppet Skeleton, Manipulated Flesh, and Gig, which gives Angelica 1 strength, endurance, and haste at the start of the scene if she has puppet strings. Her deck consists of Repressed Flesh and 3 new pages. Girl rolls 5-9 block, 4-7 blunt. This page can be mitigated with any 2-cost or higher, as well as Extract Fuel. Gig rolls 4-8, 4-8 blunt, and has a 4-8 blunt counter die. This page is basically the same as Girl, any 2 or higher, or any light regen with a block die. Rolls 6-15 blunt that destroys the opponent's next die on Clash Win, then a 5-8 block. This page should be mitigated with a light regen page with a block on 1, or something like Rekindled Strike. While you should strive to not let Angelica Puppet get puppet strings, if she does, her puppetry page rolls 5-8, 5-8, 5-8 blunt, all dealing 4 stagger damage on hit, and additionally it has a 47 block counter die, and if the speed value of the die it's cast on is 5 or higher, all dice gain 2 power. This page is incredibly difficult to beat without some serious strength stacking, and the main way to beat it is to kill the Angelica Puppet before she gets puppet strings on the 4th scene. Finally, we have Jae Heon's stack. While there are puppets alive, he'll cast a copy of Assailing Poles, which rolls 4-6, 3-6 slash, and on combat start gives Red Mark to the Librarian with the lowest HP. Red Mark causes the Puppet Angelica as well as the Puppet Strings bonus dice to focus down the character with Red Mark. Overall, this page can be clashed into by anything or ignored. He'll also cast a counter-only page for each puppet with puppet strings. The regular puppet gives him Tugging Strings, which rolls 3-7, 3-6 blunt counter. The first blunt will make the regular puppet lose 1 puppet strings on clash lose. Thin Strings is given by the Nimble puppet and rolls 3-9 evade counter, 3-6 pierce counter. The pierce will make the Nimble puppet lose 1 puppet strings on clash lose. Double Strings is given by the Weighty puppet and rolls 4-7 blunt counter, 3-8 block counter, and a blunt will make the Weighty puppet lose 1 puppet strings on clash lose. Finally, Unique Strings is from Puppet Angelica and rolls 3-8 block counter, 5-8 blunt counter, and the blunt makes Puppet Angelica lose 1 puppet strings on clash lose. Since these are counter only pages, you can't really decide your clashes super easily, so I'll just say don't forget about them. Finally, Drawing the Strings Taut is a mass individual rolling 5-10, 5-9 pierce, both inflicting 1 bind on hit. This mass is a bit annoying to consistently beat, but doesn't do too much damage, so absorbing just 1 of the dice is perfectly fine. When you kill all the puppets, Jae Heon will switch to a new set of pages, although it's quite likely that you kill Jae Heon before the puppets and never see these. Not a Chance rolls 3-8, 3-8 block counter, with the first one inflicting 1 feeble on clash win and the second inflicting 1 disarm on clash win. Shove rolls 4-10, 4-10 pierce, 3-9 blunt, and has a 3-7 blunt counter die. This page is somewhat threatening, but at this stage in the game should lose to Emotional Turbulence as well as Overcharge and True Dragon formation. Purple rolls 7-10 blunt, 4-8 block, with the blunt dealing 5 stagger damage on hit and the block inflicting 1 feeble next scene on clash win. This page can either get mitigated with a block on 1 or clashed into by Rekindled Strike. Generally, you're going to be focusing down the Puppet Angelica in the first few scenes to prevent her from getting puppet strings. It's okay if your librarians take some damage from the other puppets as long as they don't get staggered. Once you've killed Puppet Angelica, you can focus on killing all the puppets, and once they've become staggered, nuke down Jae Heon in a couple of scenes. Burn works really well because it triggers after the puppet strings get removed from winning clashes against Jae Heon's counter only pages, so you don't need to waste a page killing the puppets. Once you've beaten Jae Heon, you'll get his key page and a new combat page to work with. He has 100 HP, 54 stagger, is slash damage and blunt stagger injured, and has 3 passives. Speed 3, Knowable Fabric, and Puppet Strings. At the start of the act, a special combat page, Puppeteer Strings, is added to the librarian's hands that can be played on an ally to give them Puppeteer Strings. The character with Puppeteer Strings gains 1 strength or endurance at the start of each scene, and their HP won't go below 1. If the character with Puppeteer Strings is at 1 HP at the end of the scene, or Jae Heon dies, Puppeteer Strings is lost at the start of the next scene. This passive can be extremely broken when combined with HP sustained from Health Hall or otherwise. On Malkuth's floor, combining it with Matchlight and Loyalty can prove to be a disgusting combo since you'll take a ton of damage and give your team a ton of strength, but you won't die if you put on a bunch of healing passives. The combat page you get, Gugugu, isn't as good. The roll average is the same as Creek's, and while that page was S+ tier in Urban Nightmare, at this point in the game, there are better things to do with 2 light. When building Jae Heon, I'd recommend building a bit more defensively than you may normally because of the power that Puppet Strings gives you. For passives, stuff that reduces damage like Guts, as well as sustain passives or invulnerability passives work very well. In the next video, we'll be moving on to the next layer and fighting Elena. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.